Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Anna, and today we're going to talk about something very important for English learners, pronunciation. And as always, I'm here with my friend Alex. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing great, Anna, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. Pronunciation is often overlooked, but it plays a huge role in how we communicate in English.
Absolutely. A lot of learners focus on vocabulary and grammar, which are important, but pronunciation can be the key to sounding more fluent and natural. So let's dive in and explore why pronunciation matters.
2. Why pronunciation is important. So Anna, let's start with the basics. Why do you think pronunciation is so important for non-native English speakers?
Good question, Alex. Pronunciation is crucial because even if you know the right words and grammar, poor pronunciation can make it difficult for others to understand you. It can also affect your confidence when speaking.
Exactly. I've seen learners who have excellent grammar and vocabulary but struggle to be understood because of pronunciation issues. It can create a communication barrier.
And the good news is that with practice and attention to detail, anyone can improve their pronunciation. It's a skill, not a talent. 3rd, common pronunciation challenges. Now let's talk about the challenges that non-native speakers face when it comes to pronunciation. Alex, what do you think are some of the most common issues?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the difference in sounds between English and a learner's native language. For example, many languages don't have the T sound, which can be tricky for learners.
Yes, like in words such as think and this. I also see a lot of difficulty with the R and L sounds, especially for speakers of certain Asian languages.
True, and let's not forget about stress and intonation. English is a stress-timed language, which means certain syllables are emphasized more than others. Misplacing stress can make words or sentences hard to understand.
That's a great point. Misplaced stress can completely change the meaning of a sentence. For example, the word present can be a noun or a verb depending on where the stress is placed.
4th, tips for improving pronunciation.
Okay, let's get into some practical tips. Alex, what's your first recommendation for improving pronunciation?
My top tip is to listen carefully and mimic native speakers. Podcasts, movies, and TV shows are great for this. Listen to how native speakers pronounce words, pay attention to the intonation and rhythm, and try to imitate them as closely as possible.
That's a great one. I'd add that recording yourself speaking is really helpful. When you listen back, you can identify areas where you're struggling and compare your pronunciation to native speakers.
Yes, and don't be afraid to slow down. Sometimes learners try to speak too fast, which makes pronunciation worse. Focus on saying words clearly and correctly first, and then you can speed up as you get more comfortable.
Exactly. Another tip is to focus on one sound at a time. For example, if you're having trouble with the TH sound, spend some time practicing that specifically until you feel confident.
And finally, use resources like phonetic charts or apps that teach you the correct mouth and tongue positions for different sounds. This can really help with those tricky sounds that don't exist in your native language.
5th, practice exercises. Let's give our listeners some practical exercises they can try at home. Alex, do you have any favorites?
One exercise I love is called shadowing. You listen to a short piece of audio, like a sentence or a phrase, and then repeat it immediately after the speaker. It's great for improving both pronunciation and intonation.
That's a good one. Another exercise is to practice minimal pairs, words that differ by only one sound. For example, bat and pat, or light and right. This helps train your ear to hear subtle differences and practice making the correct sound.
Yes, and tongue twisters are also fun and effective. Try saying something like, "She sells seashells by the seashore," to practice tricky sounds. It's challenging but really helpful.
Oh, I love tongue twisters. And don't forget about reading aloud. Reading out loud helps you practice pronunciation in a structured way, and it's something you can do every day.
6. Common mistakes to avoid. Now let's talk about what not to do. One common mistake I see is learners focusing too much on being perfect. Anna, have you noticed this?
Yes, absolutely. Trying to sound perfect can actually hold you back. Remember, the goal is to be understood, not to sound exactly like a native speaker.
Right. Another mistake is ignoring stress and intonation. You might pronounce each word correctly, but if your intonation is flat, it can still be hard to understand.
Exactly. And sometimes learners get stuck on one difficult sound and forget to focus on overall fluency. It's important to keep practicing the whole picture, not just isolated sounds. 7. Q&A and final thoughts. All right, before we wrap up, let's answer a common question we get. Alex, someone asked, how long does it take to improve pronunciation?
That's a great question. It really depends on how much time you dedicate to practice. Some learners see noticeable improvements in a few months, while others might take longer. The key is consistency. Practicing a little every day is more effective than doing a lot once a week.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes along the way. That's how we learn. Keep practicing, stay patient, and you'll see progress.
Well said, Anna. So to all our listeners, keep working on your pronunciation and don't be afraid to try these tips and exercises. You'll be amazed at how much progress you can make.
That's all for today's podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time with more language learning tips. Until then, happy practicing.